Like many anime fans in 2013, I jumped onto the bandwagon and watched Shingeki no Kyojin, known here stateside as Attack on Titan. However, I only watched halfway through the first season before dropping it because of how depressing it really was, and I got bored, simply put. And that was around the time I discovered JoJo, and so I decided to watch that instead. Anyway, I came into this hoping that I might like it better than the anime, kind of like how I prefer the live-action Death Note films over the original story in the manga. That is not what happened here. This movie is confusing as a standalone story if you are completely unfamiliar with the franchise. If you are familiar with the franchise, then it's an hour and a half of frustration. Only 2 or 3 of the characters in this film actually resemble their counterparts from the source material, and character motivations are needlessly altered as are key events of the story. Now, change is inevitable when adapting anything to another medium, I get that, but the real problem comes from the fact that we essentially have 2 different movies being smashed together here. At first, this film feels more like it's a twist on the concept of Attack on Titan, as it makes it clear that we're supposed to be in a post-apocalyptic version of modern Japan, something that's more or less ambiguous in the anime or manga, because in the anime or manga, they kind of make it modeled after Europe, but they don't really explicitly state whether or not it's supposed to be our actual world. As such, the overall approach, at least with how it felt in the first half, makes it come across more like a kaiju film than a straightforward adaptation, which I personally didn't mind as much, and I probably wouldn't have minded as much if they actually committed to that. But as we make our way through the rest of the film, we're given a bunch of scenes that are forced in because they were specifically in the manga and the anime, almost shot for shot, as well as having some really pointless shots that may look cool for the trailer, but don't really add anything to the overall story, and even, well, break the suspension of disbelief. I mean, I'm sorry, when you have a character that's able to shoulder throw a Titan, it makes it hard for me to take the film seriously, and this is coming from someone who's a fan of stuff like Ultraman and Super Sentai. What doesn't help is the fact that it's also trying to comment on so many things at once, as it takes some very serious jabs at Imperial Japan and fascism, it takes a look at bureaucracy, analyzes poverty, compulsory military service, and really the problem is that, like the RoboCop remake, it does it in such broad strokes. I mean, there are some good scenes in here that would have been really powerful if they had actually committed to the type of story that they were trying to tell. Point being, this film really shows signs of the fact that it had multiple directors. The first director having a very clear vision, while the second was more kowtowing to Isayama's wishes. As a result, the story is a mess that makes very little sense and almost expects you to already be familiar with the franchise, despite butchering the story of the source material. When it comes to the technical aspects of the film, the effects are passable at best and just absolutely ridiculous at worst. Again, this is coming from someone who's a fan of stuff like Ultraman. The green screen effects lack polish, and the creature effects range from sufficiently creepy titans to over-designed messes like the Colossal Titan and Aaron's Titan form. As for the cinematography, there are a few strong visual moments and a few good uses of color. That is until the film's climax, where a lot of that theming that they've established over the course of the entire film is pretty much abandoned in favor of trying to match the manga more closely, even though you're doing that during the last 30 minutes of the film when you should have been doing that from the very beginning if that's what you were going for. Overall, if you're looking for something that has all of the problems of Attack on Titan, but with little to none of what makes it engaging, then look no further than this film. This is more or less what Michael Bay's take on the franchise would look like if you just added more explosions and military worship. There were good ideas here, there was a semblance of a good film here, but they're just lost in a mess of lackluster characters and only a surface level understanding of the source material. It just goes to show that even filmmakers in Japan can screw up royally. All of that said, Attack on Titan Part 1, no subtitle needed, gets a 2 out of 5. So that's it for this episode of Romney's Reviews. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.